Well, hello there, everyone. You here show you right here is the rocks at recess, and basically that this activity right here basically talks about the memories from when I was in school, and as well as from talk about right here is a picture right here is like if I would have been in the classroom, and I know that like you had mentioned before about like with class though, but anyway, but this picture right here while I was drawing, as I mainly want to talk about right here is like the story right here, like with me, right here in front of the computer, and I know that ever since I was in like the second grade, that like on a computer and playing the games, and as well as other mathematical type of programs, and as well as anything that's related to the computer, and I know like anybody that they may learn to where that really that a lot of times that you want to interact with the computer, compared to interacting with the kids. And I know a lot of times a lot of the classmates, especially at the school, that a lot of them that look forward to going out to the playground, head off to recess, and they enjoy that there's like that social activities like for the outdoors, and this kind of reminds me of a story for like and I know that like nowadays online, say like on a mobile devices, that you can actually pick up the weather forecast on your phones, and it's like it's even raining now, but still that if it will be raining outside, then it was like anybody would probably say, well, recess will be indoors, everyone. And so thinking about as to what the things that maybe that the kids can maybe do for fun even indoors. So thinking about as to where I draw a few pictures, and any of the kids will probably think about as to where that a lot of times that I would probably say that I was like what you call known as one of the artists, there in the class. Those couple of times, out of a year, to where that it will be like what you call a time to where that something that got delayed for a few minutes or so, that kids would just be kind of sitting in the room and kind of like wondering, well, what are we supposed to do now? And so that just to kind of keep the inner kids entertained. And I know that sometimes, though, that if there's going to be a situation to where whenever kids show up for school, and let's just say if the weather's going to be bad or something, and thinking about as to where that really that's something that maybe you can do just to help keep the kids entertained for about 5 or 10 minutes. And if I can remember right, it was not the fourth and fifth grade. If I can remember right, that was the seventh grade. That one time, whenever that it was a math class actually, and like with anybody that more likely warrants to where that drawing pictures of the kids right here playing the game of basketball or kickball, and you're like warrant to where Matthew, what are you doing? But on your hand, you see right here is the years right here. Let's just say if this was like a history class. And I know that whenever recess time does come, that it could be like what you call is like any other type of class. One of those classes could be for like science or language arts or some kind, or maybe reading. But a lot of times we weren't toward it. A lot of times it was after lunch, and then on your hand that like for recess time in the morning. I guess some schools that they have it between like 9:55 and then at 10:25 or so in the morning or so. But on the other hand, you see right here is like for 1776 to 2016, and this was like a 4th of July activity right here. So anybody who's going to be maybe be in summer school and like warrant to wear anything that you can be doing like so far as outdoor activities. And one of these activities right here would be like top I see for rocks. So, and I know that anybody will more likely warrant to rocks at recess, like yeah. And there would be a number of keywords for like rock, such as to where people want to look at you as like a rock star, or people that want to look at you as cute, good looking or something like that, or the actual rocks that you'll be walking on and then running around on as well as playing around on. So I know that a lot of times, though, that like with any kids, whenever they go out to the playground, that they may find a few things on the ground, such as maybe they'll pick up rocks and then show people like, well, I wonder what this rock is for, or I wonder what that rock is for, and but on the other hand, that I can remember that going out to the playground, and I'm like watching all the other kids playing, and then a couple of them, I think once or twice, that they would ask, because they would be talking to me about something I was working on in class, and I don't know if any of the other kids have ever wondered to where that that for whatever reason that I would think that the kids would think that this would be kind of neat looking right here. If anybody has taken like any type of perspective lessons as to where you have right here is a kid right here and a kid right here, and and the way I drew them over right here would be like girls. So anybody wants to where that you're gonna have it to where draw any girls or so, like in the background to where that I didn't really draw me, like I drew my me right here, but let's just say that this right here would be like say is like an activity right here, a game for like a the kid between the girls and then the guys right here. You have right here is the guy with in the kickball court, and then you have right here is the girls, and so it's sometimes a lot of times that whenever I was in school, just like almost any other kid, that whenever they see a girl that kind of interests them, and they think that's kind of cute, like beautiful or so, and you're like Warren to where that I can remember that it was during class, but then I can remember that being out on the playground, and I think a couple of times that if they were to be like if they were to maybe reconnect with me on maybe on Facebook or so, and you're like Warren to where that it was a long time ago, and plus it's like we're growing up or so, but on your hand too they might ask as to where hey that how come that that on average is to where that you thought of me of as attractive there at the school, and then plus it's like I used to always be curious about your artwork, especially. So like with anybody that they may warrant to it, because I could tell anybody here for the past 4 years is to where that a lot of the girls in the class is like that they were pretty I say fascinated over the work I've been doing, and I know that like with anybody that then whenever they go out to the playground, that do they really pay attention to too much of the weather forecast? So anybody that may want to where nowadays with technology, if anybody were to bring like maybe a smartwatch, to school with them, or maybe a little cell phone or so, that smartphone, that have it with them, even during recess time, and you by say that that get a game on there that you would like to play with about maybe four other kids or so, and one of those games, could have been for like Scramble or so, or that any other type of game that would be like on the phone as well on a mobile device. But on the other hand, that I just really think that that the teachers would probably suggest is like getting involved in the game to where that you're interacting with your hands as well as with your arms and your knees and your feet, as well as is like for anything that you see. It's like to where whenever you catch a ball, a lot of times it's like I guess it basically means is to where that the ball basically is going a certain direction, and for like a game of kickball though, and once or twice it's happened before to where I was not even playing the game of kickball at all, and I caught the ball. So anybody that more likely wants to where any source of attention that any kid would probably think that they would like to get, even during recess time, would probably say is to where that whenever you catch a ball and then you're like saying, well, you're not even playing. Well, it's like, well, why did you catch the ball if you're not even playing? So you're like Warren to where that anything between that's like for like anybody like Warren to where would you like to maybe pick up a rock and study a rock, or that if you would pick up a ball and study about the ball? So anybody that may warrant to where that how would you be able to interact with the rock? And you would more likely find rocks almost a lot of places anywhere on the playground, near the slide and near the swing set, and then sometimes that whenever you would be swinging for about maybe 10 minutes or so, that sometimes you would get them in your shoes. And I can remember a couple times that I would get that the rocks in my shoes or so, and sometimes it had to take your shoes off just to be able to get the rocks out, and like with anybody that they may warrant to where that that I can remember talking to a few of the girls, during that time of the year, and tell him, hey, do you got any rocks in your shoes? And she was like, hey, yes. How about you? But on your hand, that I can remember that, yeah, talking to some of the kids there, and like Warren tour that they would, one of them would ask you a question such as to where that, like I would ask them sometimes, it's like, hey, well, how good are you doing at this or that? And so that's just a thing about when we're a kid that when we talk to other classmates is that there are the questions that they may ask you, and one of those would be is to where that they look at the some of the artwork, and I could probably say that yeah, that like I mentioned before is to where something that I may have told the teacher, or if we were maybe be reading a book or so, and they start, the teacher asked me to read one or two paragraphs, from a book, and then whenever recess time came around, and like any kids will probably wonders to where that yeah that one or two of them they may ask, it's like, well, how do you spell this word or how do you spell that word? And so you're like wondering to where that that well, one time I think yeah, one time that I can remember, right, it may have been a few times actually to where people would ask me as to where, how do you spell this or how do you spell that? And on your hand, at how do you spell weather or so? But on your hand, that that yeah, that like for like a soup, or maybe if the word could have been for like friendship or anything like that. The other one could have been superstar or something like that. Anybody to ask you how do you spell superstar? But on your hand too for like rocks though, that what you call it, they're made what you call beats like for like rock star. So that's just a thing though that any kid that they're going to be new to the school district, and they may weren't to where necessarily to where that like whenever 4th of July comes around or so, and thinking about is to where like with birthdays though, and I know that back whenever I was in school that if there was going to be somebody's birthday, especially depending on the teacher though, if it would be somebody's birthday, that they would say, well, how old are they? Well, that's great. I'm like, hey kids, let's do something special for Matthew and Lily. But I can remember that. But yeah, that one year that if I can remember right, that one year that I think it was back in May or so. I'm trying to remember that that had the time to where that usually that like the elementary years they go on between what you call between cycle breaks or so, and something that they last until about June or so, and then off the spring off the summer school. But anyway, but you have right here as an example right here at me sitting in front of a computer. So anybody that may ask is like, yeah, you would spend a lot of time on the computer. It is, other than going out to the playground and being interactive with all the other kids, and getting and joining a game of like Foursquare with them. And sometimes though it was like that, yeah, that going out to the playground, and a lot of kids, it seemed like that the way that they wanted to play the game in a way that they thought about me as well. And I kept thinking about, well, I really don't want to go out to the playground because all those other kids, they'll probably tease me for how I play a game or some sort of just the way that they talk to me, especially. But on the other hand, too, the way I think about it, though, is like with any kids is to where they go out to the playground, and then it's like one to where that just the way that they interact with all the other kids, and thinking about is to where that some of them that may think that well, you're not playing the game right, or they may tell you something, or and I know once or twice that like the kids whenever they pick up a rock, and then they want to say that you'll hold out your hand, I want to give you a surprise or so. It's, I guess it was like a tease to where that yeah, that out on the playground that you would maybe find all kinds of rocks, and Warren to where that really, I'm like, if any of the recess teachers or anybody would say is to where if it's recommended really to pick up the rock and share it with anybody or whatever. And like with anybody, that if they would have found a fossil on the playground, and I'm sure anybody probably say that whenever you find a fossil on the playground, and sometimes some of the kids would maybe think about as to where, oh, well, what'd you find? Like, we're going to go outside today, going to see what we can find today. But on your hand, that yeah, like any, whenever, if especially if you're going to be, maybe going to the school for the first maybe 6 weeks or so, and I know sometimes though that any kids that would maybe think about us to where that those kids are not going to like me, even though if I join them for a game of four square kickball or so, but that on your hand that with this drawing right here, I went and drew right here with the pen, it's like on sketch paper right here, but this right here we're not looking at no pictures. So I went and drew this right here, and if any kids were to warrant toward it, hey, would you be able to draw a picture of us, at the kickball court, and like have it to where that that there would be maybe about 3 or 4 girls that you knew from your class, along with the guy right here playing at the kickball court right here. So Warren to her bots, it's like to draw them, and they may think that that will be kind of neat as well. But on your hand that you have right here is like with anybody's to where that if you're going to be wind up, it's like to where that we may go through that situation to where that if we were to fall down on the playground, or that any situation that came up, and like Warren to where that an incident that came up too to where that you may have lost your balance, or that that especially that whenever recess time was over with, whenever the bell rings, and like with anybody that may warrant to where that yeah, after recess time is over with, and it's like a time to now to get off the slide and off the monkey bars and go ahead and run, like go ahead and get in line. And about then that one year that I can remember right, that they allowed most of the kids, like the sixth graders, and I know that like with anybody that they may warrant to where that they would have not had recess time in the sixth grade, but like from back in back in 1996 though, it was like it had it to where that it was in the sixth grade that the kids would still have the recess time. And on your hand too that with any other all the other kids, it's like between the age of 11 and 12 though that they would in the sixth grade that they would be able to enjoy their recess time. And but then towards the end of that school year, if I can remember right, that we did not even have to get in line anymore. I'm like yeah, we may got in line at times, but when their recess time was over with, it a lot of kids would just walk back into the school. So that I can remember this is that if there would have been maybe an incident that happened, like Warren to where that maybe if you gotten sunburn, or maybe fell down, and like Warren to where that yeah that fall down right here, and then then you wind up getting scarred, and then you're like Warren to where that you that right there, you like look like you landed on a rock. And I know, like with any kids, is like whenever they're going to be out on the playground, and sometimes it seems like to where that you didn't really have very many friends, as to where that if you would have fell down, or maybe that an incident that happened to her, that you lost your balance somehow, maybe on a swing or so, and weren't to where like anybody that may weren't to where that you didn't go to a nurse or nothing. I'm like whenever if you would have fell down on the playground, and I know like with any kids is to where that if they would have gotten injured or somehow that let's just say that they were on a swing or on a slide, and then they wind up bumping their head on a bar or so, and they wind up hitting their head on something on the playground equipment or so, and you're like Warren to where that hey, that how come you didn't bother to go to the nurse? And one of my reasons was because it's like if I would got hurt on the playground, was I think I mentioned before, is to where that yeah, that I thought that maybe that they would have maybe said is to where we'll get to class. It's like, well, you shouldn't, like, well, that they need you in class. It's like since recess time is over with. And I know like with anybody is to where whenever you come back into school, especially on a hot day, that especially around springtime, that sometimes as teachers would maybe have about one or two issues about somebody that is thirsty and wants to get a drink at the drinking fountain or so. But on the other hand, that talk about for memories about rocks at recess, and thinking about is to where that like with anybody that really I recommend to where like with anybody if there was any problems, or if there was anything such as an incident that happened, like if you would have fell down and like we wanted to, or then how come you didn't go to the nurse to about it? And some kids that may say is to where, well, my mom or my dad may have understood it a little bit better, compared to the nurse. Well, the nurse would maybe have told me as to where that, well, she don't have no ointment to put on, like, oh, you got hurt. Well, she don't have an ice pack, for me to use or so. So sometimes, though, as nurses there at the school, though, which I know that they would probably say is to where that sometimes that, like with anybody, for like any kids, like when they're out is going to schools, to where that if you would have gotten hurt, maybe in the hallway or gotten hurt on the playground or so, that they would ask as to where that, to go to the nurse, just to have it looked at. And I don't know. Let's just say that anybody that if they maybe would have got maybe a rash or maybe poison ivy or so, maybe on the playground, that they would have been somehow that they had gotten something such as to where with anything that was related to like weather alerts or anything like that, and you're like Warren to where that with anything related to weather alerts or anything such as announcements or so, and any kind of distractions, and anybody that may warrant where that whenever you're playing a game or so, then an incident may happen to where somebody falls down or somebody loses their balance, and you're like warrant to where that, hey, that and nobody bothers to ask you, oh, are you all right, or anything like that. So sometimes though, that even though if it was years ago, that I keep thinking about is to where that for whatever I'm doing, if it's going to be art related or anything like that, it's always going to remind me of a story of a situation. So that is why it seems like to where that really that for anything such as to where anything that I used to play with when I was a kid or so is to just to kind of get some reasonable thoughts and support as to where that anybody that anybody who's going through that similar thing. Similar situation to where that they didn't have very many friends until they made more friends and until they decide and until they were able to to get a good paying job or so. But that's just the thing about with me though is like to where I was like what you call one of those kids to where that I kept to myself a lot of times and thinking about it to where that didn't have very many friends. But then especially like on the playground though is to where I can remember this that back whenever I was in the sixth grade though that there was a thunderstorm that was coming by and like if it's going to be a flash flood warning or anything like that or tornado watches or warnings or so or maybe earthquakes or hurricanes or so that more likely that they would say is to where they would announce on the weather to where that please power off the computers. And then I know sometimes the kids even in the classroom would get scared about it, such as, well, what's going on? but we would know that that anything that was related to like keep the kids safe indoors and as well as if you were in history class or science class or so. But on your hand, I talk about right here, like with anybody, is to where that knowing about rocks at recess, and I know that like for like any type of it's going to be gravel rocks or maybe the blacktop rocks. So, but that's just a thing though, is to where anybody that may think about is to where if you ever heard that story before, to where somebody was working with a project where you're working with paint or something like that, or with clay. Whenever you're going to be handling the clay or the paint with your bare hands, like maybe face painting or so, you may get it on your fingers and on your hands, on your feet or so, until you got to wash it off. But on your hand, that we weren't, where that we may get scars or so, from whenever we were playing real hard on the playground, and like anybody would probably say is to where that you get scarred, or maybe that anything that is related to like what you call is like a for any sunburn or anything like that. But anybody that may want to where that you didn't bother to go to a nurse, that whenever you would got caught something, or maybe that would have sprained your ankle or gotten a swollen ankle, or maybe that if you would have fell down on something, then that's just the thing I usually think about is to where that I kept thinking about the nurse would more likely says to where that well, you got to go back to class. And another thing could have been is to where the teachers, I don't know if they would have been able to excuse me, because I know whenever I was in school, though, whenever I was in the sixth grade, if I can remember right, that seemed like at the time to where well, the teachers that they would have maybe had a problem with writing you a pass just to be able to go to the nurse or so just to talk about something. So it was like with any kids, if there's going to be a kid that's going to be going through, like, say, a traumatic ordeal, and one of those would have been is to where that, hey, that, well, that if there was a problem or a situation that went on at school, it's like you need to tell, the teacher about it. And like with any kids, that they may learn to where that, yeah, that you talk to a few of the kids, and then even though it's something that happened years ago, and sometimes that they may still ask that question as to where, well, whatever happened? I'm like, well, we were wondering why you were doing this or why you were doing that. Why is it that that you didn't, talk to too many, kids, too much of the time? And I know with a lot of kids that one of those was advised to where, how come you don't talk? How come, how come you don't interact with all the other kids? And sometimes that's usually how I say is to where that they spend time on the computer because it seemed like to where that, yeah, that one of those reasons was because I wanted to have my own computer. So anybody that may want to where that, yeah, you didn't want your own tetherball practice, court, or you didn't want your own four square unit, or you didn't want to you didn't want a basketball to play with, outside or so. So anybody that may want to, or that, yeah, that especially on a nice day, that playing around with the jump rope or the hula hoops or so. But I could probably say it's like, from the year 1991 to like 1996 when I had recess time, that I didn't see very many kids with jump ropes or hula hoops or any of those skip it toys. So, and I know, like with any of the schools, though, is to where there more likely would have been quite a few toys that maybe the kids would have liked to play on, that have with them, maybe during the recess time, as to where anything that they would have liked to play with on the playground. One of those could have been maybe the hula hoop or maybe the jump rope, but I didn't see very many of that whenever I was going to school. So at the time, it seemed like to where either it was not allowed or that it was just something because that the kids just didn't want to play with it. So, and a lot of the activities that they had there at the school to where they would provide it, like when a recess time came around, and they would provide the basketball and the kickball, and as well as the soccer ball, but and I know that, like with anybody, that they may want to where, how come that they did not have anything like a softball or maybe footballs. So I know I didn't have that very we didn't have very many of that at my school, or the fact because I guess that was for younger kids, I guess that they just thought they would have been too dangerous or so. But on your hand, at for like any type of balls or anything that is related to like sports interactives or anything like that, social activities. So we're like one toward that, yeah, for how we interact with our feet, and as well as our hands as well, and like with anybody's to where that like say for rocks at recesses, it basically is to where that anybody will likely want to where that the special memories that you may remember, and one of those would have been is to where that, yeah, you talk to the girls, and for whatever reason, I can remember this too. For whatever reason, I kept thinking about if I were to maybe meet a cute looking girl or so, or maybe somebody, a nice gentleman, and for whatever reason, I would just think about it into my mind to where it may be something that. Something to kind of get my mind off all the stress. One of them could have been maybe a Disney movie that I maybe one that they, and I think that, yeah, one of them could have been talking about maybe a Disney movie that they watched or so, and if I can remember right, that it was The Lion King, or I don't even think that was a Disney movie, but like The Lion King, that whenever The Lion King came out, that there was about four classmates in the classroom that were talking about, and every time I would. And every time I would look at them and see them, it would kind of remind me as to where that yeah, since that was like what you call one of the popular movies during that time. That besides, they would show other movies too. If I can remember right, yeah, they would show like the Goofy movie, but one of those other movies would have been like The Lion King and a few other movies too. I know there was other movies that they did show there at the school too. It's like if it was during that like maybe on a Friday evening that they would show a movie or so, but anyway, but whenever I would look at the girls and thinking about necessarily to where that, yeah, that every time I was thinking about them, I was thinking about, maybe a Disney movie. And, until I actually talk to them and get to know them a little bit better, it's just something to keep in mind of to where that, yeah, that, whenever you do talk to them, you may, start talking about, hey, have you seen that movie? Oh, okay. Well, who's your favorite character? So, it seems like just to be able to get to know a few kids in the classroom, it seems like to where you just really need to, besides what you call asking them about, about anything such as, what do they like to do, what are they good at, what kind of games are they good at, what do they like to do during their spare time or so, what's your name and what's your favorite color or so, but then you would start talking to them maybe about a movie that if they've seen or not. So sometimes though that I kind of want to think about as to or something that and sometimes yeah, like anybody that may want to, or what do you call an example for like maybe somebody like a show off, somebody who wanted to show off their skills as to where anybody that they may want to where that yeah that if you're going to be a kid like with any kids like mature enough and there may be like a trick or so, like anybody getting on the bicycle, there may have been a certain trick to where you get on the bicycle and you show somebody something and they either think, awesome, oh, that's cool. So you're like one to where sometimes you may get carried away and maybe show, well, I can do this and I can do that. And then somebody else in the classroom will probably say, what are you doing? Show off. So you're like Warren to where that sometimes that whenever you're going to be meeting somebody in the classroom and you think that they're kind of cute looking or so, and you may show them maybe a few skills and a few lessons, and thinking that that you want to feel a part of the group, you want to kind of get to know them a little bit better, even whenever they're in class together, and that sometimes as to where that you may start to, what you call it, doing some stuff to where for whatever reason I don't know exactly what the word name for it though is to where that whenever kids that they don't know other kids, basically the story goes as to where when kids don't know other kids, and then by the time they start talking, and by the time that they start showing some of the stuff that they can do, and for anything that they thought of or so, I'm like, yeah, a story or a poem or anything like that. You start talking to them about something, and it seems like to where that they start telling you that that's interesting. So at the time, it seems like to where, what do we call that, to where that somebody else in the classroom that starts becoming interested in a little bit about what you do, and then they start asking you to show us some of your tricks or show us some of your moves or so, and it show us what you can do for how to for how to play this game, or what's the score from this game or so. So that's usually what I think about as though is to where that like rocks at recess is that anybody that may warrant to where maybe the different shapes or so on a rock, and you're like warrant to where necessarily to where that yeah, you pick up a rock and do you think that that's a fossil, or hey, that is that what you call an ordinary rock or anything like that. But anyway, like with anybody's tour that like with me though that you between getting on the computer and as well as socializing on the playground, and I could probably say by the time school was about almost over with, that's whenever that a lot of times that the kids that they would talk to me, and then especially whenever I had a yearbook. Whenever I had a yearbook, I can remember quite a few of them would sign them, and they would ask, it's like that they, hey, nice knowing you. Hey, that I miss playing this game with you or so. I miss playing Foursquare. Good luck in the 7th grade. So I know that quite a few students, whenever they you go out to to recess time, and they would actually talk about maybe their favorite subject or so, and think about it as to, well, what do you call that whenever you start getting some source of attention? Maybe a little bit more than what you're used to getting, or maybe more than what you expect, and as well as from what you've been getting for those past few weeks of school. And I guess that basically means is to where that yeah, that some of those kids that could have been busy with maybe their own school work, or maybe they've given them the time and opportunity to where that, yeah, like just like all the other kids, is to where that there was so many days out of a year to where that, that person right there was just like, yeah, nobody really want to talk to him or her, and they didn't really ask them about the, what games are they good at, what do they like to do, what are they good at, or anything like that. And after about maybe a few days or so, and then they get to know them a little bit better. So that's usually the thing about, is like to where rocks at recess, is that anybody who's going to be picking up a rock and thinking about, is to where that, yeah, is it going to remind you of anything in particular, such as what you call rock star, or hey, this rocks, or so. So I could tell anybody that really, it seems like that there's more rocks than balls, or any other source of equipment, though. But on your hand, that like with anybody, that it's like, between any playground equipments, and I know, like, from that towards spring break, I can remember whenever they blacktopped the playground. I can remember that for whatever reason, that the playground looked different. Well, it was because one side of the playground was higher than the other side, so it was like that the playground just looked a little bit different. So I know, like with all the other kids, is to where that whenever that if you were to fall down and get back up, and sometimes it seems like to where that, what does it feel like you'd actually fall down, or maybe to, like, what you call that to spin, or maybe to be able to slide. I'm like, to slide and then you landing on the rocks or so. What did it feel like? I'm like, well, it hurt just a little bit, and felt like a little bit like being stung by a bee or so. But on your hand, the way I think about those, like with anybody, is to where that, like with anybody, to where at the time it seems like to where that, if you were taking a test, and like with all the other class students, is to where that they more likely say, is to where that all the other kids were working ahead of you, and sometimes it seems like to where the speed is all measured by, is to where if it takes you too long, then more likely is to where that they say, well, you got to turn the test in, no matter if it's complete or not. So that's sometimes, as to where that, like whenever we go out to the play, out to recesses, is like, is there any type of rules as to where that, well, you're not playing the game fast enough, so really nobody wants to talk to you as of right now. Well, good luck for tomorrow, or good luck by next week or so. So sometimes it seems like to where, like with any kids, is that whenever they're going to be out on the playground and thinking about, us to where, like for for 4th of July, is that thinking about, us to where that for the American flag especially, you walk into school and you sing the national anthem, such as "I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America," and the gentlemen will hold their hands over their hearts, and then sometimes, whenever class starts, I can remember that it would be about 40 seconds or so, between 30 and 40 seconds, that all the kids, a lot of times the first class, they would walk in, and then they would say, "I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and pledge allegiance to one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." So they would sing the Pledge of Allegiance and then go on with their schoolwork. But at the time I warned, or between 1776 and 2016. So like with any kids, they may warrant to where that for you count down between how many years that would be for like any type of math class. So whenever you're going to be at recess, and warrant to where that for any for the countdown of the score, to where that how many times that the ball has glided through midair and bounced off the ground, and then returned to your hand. And like with any kids, that they may warrant to where if you're not playing the game, especially, and then you catch a ball, what does that usually mean whenever you catch a ball? You're like warrantor, that really not too many of the kids want to talk to you until what you call maybe if you do catch a ball. So, they may say, well, you can pick up a rock, get the feel of the rock, but then by the time you catch a ball, and anybody that may want to where, hey, hey, cutie, you're not even playing. You're not even playing, but good catch. But so that's just a thing about like with any kids, that they may warrant to where that if they're going to be out on the playground, you catch a ball, or maybe that if you're playing maybe tetherball or maybe basketball, and then you make a shot or so, and like you make a basket, you make you toss the ball through midair, and then you make a basket at a game of basketball, and then sometimes you make to get those comments says, hey, how's it going? How's it going, cutie? Or so, and like, hey, how's it going? Hey, nice shot. So you're like Warren to where that sometimes that you may get comments like that, and like with any kids is to where that whenever you catch a ball that sometimes that you may spend maybe during the whole recess time or maybe during the whole week trying to figure out people are like Warren to where that you try to make a basket at a game of basketball or you try to kick the ball at a game of kickball, and sometimes you're like Warren to where that yeah you're supposed to run around all the bases just to be able to win a game or so. So you're like Warren to where that sometimes if you were to win a game or learn how to do something, and then a few of the other kids that may have missed maybe one or two shots or so, or they may miss something, and thinking about as to where that really about how do kids get to know other kids. So you're like Warren to where it seems like it just Texas to where that yeah that any kids that may learn to where oh my I can how'd you do that? I can well. It seems like to where just Texas to where that the ball was coming from this direction. I just caught it. So like with any kids that whenever you catch a ball or maybe whenever you pass a ball to another player, and the way that you run around in a way that you kind of what you call going to like a certain path though is thinking about as to where that the how kids get to know other kids, and Warren to where between what you call for what rocks. But on the hand too, like there you are. Talk about it for rocks at recess, and thanks for watching. It's like Manny 25, and have a great day, and like and you want to say enjoy the weather. Like right here, thanks for watching. And also, it's like everyone right here, like talk about for rocks at recess, and basically that you see right here is like this right here will be example right here of like for my smartphone. It is, I guess you say like an Android right here, kind of like a smartphone, but you have right here it's like an Android right here that talks about the weather forecast. Any kids that may warrant to, especially rocks at recess, and like warrant to where that this right here that may look like maybe like glow in the dark or special effects or anything like that. And like at the time they're like warrant where you show them this is like that you look up the weather and then it's actually telling you the local weather forecast right here, and you're like warrant where at the time you're like you can take it to anywhere with you like on mobile or so, and like with anybody that may warrant to where that that you're going to be taking it anywhere, even out on the playground. I might take it with you on the playground somewhere, and you're like warrant to where that hey they think the kids would maybe like to look at it anywhere that like that they may be on the playground. But you see right here is an example right here of like of like a cell phone right here, like with anybody that they may warrant to where that it basically talks about the weather forecast right here, and I don't know, my too many kids they may warrant to where that have something like that when in class, and anybody that may warrant to where that that you're able to have something like that to where that you can actually show the class right there, and you'll be able to keep them updated about maybe the latest weather forecast or so. But you see right here is that this weather you would show it's like the amount of rain that's reported in the forecast. So like with any kids, they may warrant to where they're going to be out at recess time, and warrant to where back in the early 1991, they like warrant to where that that they would probably say like you look on a TV or the teachers maybe get the emails or so, but having that type of a technology on the phone right there, anybody that may warrant to where well really that I think that would maybe be like we say a real good idea for like show and tell, but then on your hand that you're like warrant to where really that between a cell phone and maybe a comic book, I'm sure that they would probably say that cell phones are alright, but on your hand it's much more than just what you call a cell phone. It's like a little hobby room for the kids, so the kids will be having it use on the playground especially, and you're like wanting to want to research the different rocks or so. But anyway, but they have a talk about right here is like with the phones right here is like you have right here is the weather forecast, and like with anybody that may warrant where that when they were the weather that gets bad enough, and and like wanted to where that they would maybe like to see something like that, especially during the recess time. And you're like wanted to where, what do you think that the kids would maybe want to do during the recess time, huh? Do you think that they would maybe be want to look at the weather and maybe want to look at about it's like to where that yeah their hometown or maybe where the grandparents or so would like any of the parents or any siblings or anybody like that that from where well what they're planning on maybe what they're thinking about dreaming about doing for like maybe a spring break vacation or so. So you're like wanting to where that anybody that may warrant to where that during the recess time and if they couldn't go out to the playground right then they can maybe look at something like that right there to where look at the weather right there and think about it where that where what weather does cause the weather to do for what it does. And if there's snow or if there's rain or so in the forecast or high winds or anything like that. But they are talk about there's like for rocks at recess and let's say that like May 25. Thanks for watching.